hit subscribe, tap follow, and stay with Backstory, because the next empire that shaped the world is already on its way. Here is a fact that breaks people's brains. Cleopatra lived closer in time to the iPhone than to the building of the Great Pyramid. That is how long ancient Egypt lasted. While other empires rose and fell in a single lifetime, Egypt ruled along one river for 3,000 years. 30 dynasties, god kings, golden tombs, and monuments so massive we still argue about how they were built. So how did a strip of green in the middle of a desert become the longest-lasting civilization in human history? And how did it finally end? This is the entire history of ancient Egypt. Egypt begins with a river. Every summer the Nile flooded on schedule, so reliably that Egyptians set their calendar by it and left behind a ribbon of black, fertile soil in the middle of the Sahara. Farm that ribbon and you can feed a civilization. Around 3100 BC, a king remembered as Narmer did something no one had done before. He united the two lands of the river, Upper and Lower Egypt, under one crown. Actually, two crowns. He wore them stacked together, which is the ancient equivalent of wearing two championship belts at once. One king, one river, one kingdom. The Pharaoh was born. Then Egypt did the thing everyone remembers. It built mountains. The Great Pyramid of Giza, around 2560 BC, stacked over 2 million blocks of stone into the tallest building on Earth, a record it held for nearly 4,000 years. And here's the part the movies get wrong. The evidence says it wasn't built by armies of slaves, but by rotating crews of paid Egyptian workers, fed with bread and beer, housed in worker villages, and proud enough to scratch their team names into the stones. Friends of Khufu, reads one. Ancient graffiti from the world's first construction unions. But even mountains couldn't hold back the climate. Around 2200 BC, the floods failed, famine spread, and the Old Kingdom crumbled into chaos. Egypt rebuilt itself, the Middle Kingdom, an age of order and literature. And then came the shock. Around 1650 BC, foreign rulers the Egyptians called the Hyksos took the north. They arrived with something Egypt had never faced: horse-drawn war chariots. For the proudest civilization on earth, being ruled by outsiders was a humiliation burned into memory. But Egypt did what Egypt always did. It adapted. It learned the chariot, mastered the composite bow, and turned its shame into a war machine. Around 1550 BC, Pharaoh Ahmose drove the Hyksos out, and Egypt stopped playing defense forever. This is the new kingdom, Egypt's empire era. Armies marched into Nubia for gold and into the Levant for glory, and in the middle of it came one of history's boldest career moves. Hatshepsut, a royal wife who was supposed to babysit the throne for her stepson, simply became pharaoh. Full regalia, royal beard included. The beard was a uniform, and she wore the uniform. 20 years of peace, trade, and some of Egypt's finest monuments. Her successor, Thutmose III, went the other way. 17 military campaigns, undefeated, building the largest empire Egypt would ever have. Egypt was now the superpower of the ancient world. Gold flowed from Nubia, tribute from everywhere else, and the temple of Amun-Ra grew so rich it practically ran a state within the state. Then one pharaoh flipped the table. Akhenaten cancelled the old gods, declared one god only, the sun disk, and moved the whole capital to a brand new city in the desert. Egypt hated it. After his death, everything was reversed by his son, a 9-year-old boy named Tutankhamun. Poor Tut, a minor king who fixed his father's mess, died at 19 and became the most famous pharaoh in history, mostly because his tomb was the one nobody managed to rob. Then came the pharaoh other pharaohs measured themselves against. Ramesses II, Ramesses the Great. He reigned for 66 years, fathered around 100 children, and covered Egypt in statues of himself. Modesty was not the brand. At Kadesh, he fought the Hittites in one of the biggest chariot battles ever recorded, walked away with a draw, and declared it a magnificent victory anyway. That war ended with something genuinely historic, the first international peace treaty we still possess. A copy hangs at the United Nations today. Under Ramesses, Egypt hit its peak, colossal temples at Abu Simbel, a golden age of power that seemed like it would never end. But an empire that old carries a heavy ledger. Egypt's monuments were raised by conscripted labor gangs who owed the state their sweat. Its golden tombs were paid for by tribute and conquest, and the glory of the pharaohs rested on millions of farmers who lived and died in the mud brick villages along the river. Any honest history has to hold both truths, breathtaking achievement and the human cost beneath it. And then, slowly, the machine wore down. The mysterious sea peoples battered the coasts. Tomb robbers emptied the royal graves. Priests grew more powerful than kings. One by one, foreign powers took their turn on the throne of the pharaohs. Libyans, Nubians, Assyrians, Persians. Egypt kept the temples and the rituals, but the crown no longer belonged to Egyptians. The last dynasty wasn't even Egyptian, it was Greek. After Alexander the Great swept through, his general Ptolemy took Egypt, and for 3 centuries, Greek pharaohs ruled from the shining new city of Alexandria. The last of them was the most famous woman of the ancient world, Cleopatra. Brilliant, multilingual, ruthless. She allied with Julius Caesar, then with Mark Antony, playing the giants of Rome against each other to keep Egypt alive. It almost worked, but at Actium in 31 BC, Rome's fleet broke hers. Cleopatra chose death over being paraded in chains, and with her died 3,000 years of pharaohs. Egypt became a province of the empire we met last time, Rome. The eternal kingdom ended not with a battle cry, but with a snakebite and a Roman flag over Alexandria. If you love history that actually grips you, subscribe and follow Backstory. One channel, the whole story of the world. A new empire every few days.